Andrew was always very quiet. He would be what you'd probably call maybe introverted as a child, but he always had a good sense of humour. Like he'd throw in kind of funny quips into stuff. He was one of those kids that would observe a situation and then maybe throw a bomb in the room and then he'll kind of sit back. But very football orientated always. I mean, you know, he went to school, he did well in school and everything else, but it was soccer or basketball or whatever sport's going. Like it was just since he could walk.
If you're sporty in Ireland and you want to do sports in your school, you're going to play Gaelic or hurling because they are fun sports to do. But we'd get told off a lot, obviously, because Gaelic, they want you to play Gaelic how it's supposed to be played. And I think the boys that played football, we used to like leave the ball on the ground and try dribble and stuff. So I think that's when we're like, hey, we might as well just stick to the football.
I know, like I remember when my youngest son Ben was doing his first birthday, and we had family and whatever over. We had a big party, and I had uncles and aunts there. And my uncle Brian pointed out that he couldn't get over Andrew's management of a balloon. He just kind of had this great kind of way of keeping it on his foot, on his head, on his foot, on his head. And you're kind of watching, thinking that's going to start bouncing off some of the older adults, and it's going to get irritating. But it never happened. And he says that story even now. You know, he talks about, he remembers seeing Andrew and thinking, God, he'd be a great footballer someday.
From my youngest memories, it's just Kildare is just so peaceful. It's like, especially Leixlip as a town, it's so community based. It's one of those communities where everyone knows everyone, and especially when I started playing football, like my neighbours, my classmates, everyone was somehow involved in Leixlip United.
So here we are in Leixlip United. Leixlip United is nearly 60 years in existence. We are a massive community in Leixlip, and we felt it's important that we provide football for any kid who wants to play, boy, girl, or any ability. When Andrew came through, Andrew would have started with the kids that you see over there in the academy at the age of 3 and 4, would have moved through the years, and Andrew himself would say that at 10, 11, 12, he would have had the same struggles that any 10, 11-year-old would have in terms of his development, how he could get to that next level. Thankfully, someone like Andrew and his team were just a really special group of players. Kenny, who you'll speak to, Kenny Malloy, looked after that group from the ages 7 and 8. And what he built was a group of kids that I think 7, 8, 9 of them went on to play in England.
Andrew would have walked in here a very quiet, reserved young lad, shy, unassuming. He certainly wouldn't have been, you know, one of the best players when he walked in the door. But right away, when he walked in, he had a real, I suppose, you could see a love of football, you know.
Kenny's, I get asked this question a lot, but it's difficult to kind of put a singular, like, oh, he's this to me or he's that to me. Kenny's kind of like everything, really. Like, if I need him there, he can be my friend, or he could be like an older brother, or an uncle, or even a father figure in my life, do you know what I mean? So he's been there since literally the start when I moved to Leixlip.
As time went by, particularly when we got to kind of the under-13s, he was a dream to coach. Like he ate, slept and breathed everything we were trying to coach and do. He was up here constantly trying to improve and work on certain coaching things, you know, that you would look at him to work on.
At that age, I think I was one of those kind of late developers. Especially when I got to even around 13, 14, I remember at that age there's talks of boys starting to get interest from England and stuff like that. And the kind of first stage before I moved at 16, but I think it was the first stage at 15, where there's players on my team that were going away, going on trials and stuff, and in Ireland that's massive.
I didn't know anything about soccer, so when the interest was coming, you know, as a parent, you're kind of trying to do the research, you're trying to protect your child. He's a young teenager and there's a lot of people circling around and it's all, you know, promising sun, moon and stars, and you know a lot of that is probably not true. But yeah, Kenny was an absolute anchor to giving us real advice, you know, the truth. He would tell us, you know, do this, you know, let's look at this properly, let's really look at what are they offering, what are they actually talking about.
I would say from the under-13s there, we went into an 11-a-side. Over in Ireland, we kind of slowly went from 7-a-side into 9-a-side, and then at under-13 they went into an 11-a-side pitch. And that's where you really got to see, we've got something here, guys, you know. And it was a particular game against arguably the best team at that level, I think at that stage in under-13s. But in that game alone, Andrew was absolutely, we would have been battered that day. We were by far second best in every way, but I think we lost the game 1-0, but not for him probably, it would have been a lot more. But the stuff he was doing that day, even I remember an incident there, a ball came in and kind of two lads chasing him down, ball over the top, and he just flicked it up over, took it down and stepped in, and it was just, I still remember it to this day, you know. After that game that day, we had a knock on the door, dressing room, everybody was obviously bitterly disappointed losing the semi-final, but it was actually a Manchester United scout came and approached us, the guy Larry Dunn, great guy, and he just picked Andrew out and spoke about just like a young Paul McGrath. He said it was like watching a young Paul McGrath, and to hear that from somebody outside of, because we'd obviously be very biased here, was like, yeah, you know, we do feel we've got something special here, you know.
So I'd say it was 3 or 4 clubs that I went to at that point, the same summer that I came on trial to Norwich. And all of them, like I said, just had the same, he's not ready yet, or we don't see him becoming this or that, we're not sure. They was kind of all like half-halfies. And
then he got a couple of trials away then with the likes of Birmingham, I think it was Rotherham, Leeds. There was, I'm sure, there was a couple of interest then from other clubs, but never took him over. And he came very close on a couple of occasions. 2 or 3 times he went back to other clubs.
There was times I was like, yeah, maybe I just need to relax, maybe go back into school properly and study hard, because during that 14 and 15 school years, I was just like, I need to move to England and play football. So my whole time and energy was just on football.
It was mentally draining. As a mother, like, I was looking at this kid who had these dreams, and he was working really hard, and he was finally getting recognition for being the player that he was. I think with Kenny always saw his potential. Leixlip United always saw his potential. And certain other kind of teams maybe kind of passed him over a bit, or kind of maybe not. And then he came over, did trials for different teams, and he'd come back and it would be a no. And you could just see the head dropping more and more, and he was kind of starting to question, like, is this really what I need to be doing?
So in my head going to Norwich, I was thinking, this is my last opportunity, this is the last time I'm going to come and trial this summer, so like this is end all and be all type of thing.
Norwich didn't see where he was at, they were looking at where he could be, and I guess I'll never forget that call.
So I went on 1 week trial, got here and I was just so determined. I was like, yeah, I need to do this, there's nothing that's going to stop me in this time round. The end of that week we played, I think it was Tottenham away, and I think we got beat like 6-7-0, and I was playing centre back, and I was like, yeah, this could be it. And then after they told me that they want to offer me a deal, and then straight away when I got into the change room, got to my phone, I called Kenny first.
And he rang and he told me to score, and I got, oh, like, this is a disaster, you know. But he said, no, Norwich are going to sign me, Kenny, you know. I even get emotional talking about it now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he was just over the moon. My mum was over the moon as well. Like I said, it was just a massive relief that I didn't really have to keep kind of like stressing myself, because that summer was so stressful in terms of like confidence for me. Obviously my mum, because I was just going to England and coming back, going to England and coming back, and I was just telling her, no, they said no, they said I'm not ready. So for her, it must have been hard.
I think it was a feeling, like, we came into Colney and we were met and we were, you know, brought around, the usual, but it was just, there was this kind of open warmness. You know, it wasn't clinical. It was very, you know, come on in, have a cup of tea, having a chat about stuff. They listened to all my concerns, my worries. I still was very fearful, and I was always in contact with the agents around, you know, what do we do if this doesn't work out? Because he was 16 coming over, and it was, you know, like, am I going to have a broken teenager in 2 years' time coming back trying to forge a career then in League of Ireland? I was very adamant about that, and they answered those questions for me. You know, it wasn't just about his football, it was about him as a person.
We all kind of knew that it was our last game together, because some people might go to League of Ireland, some people might stop playing football, some people might go to England. Kenny was so obsessed with that cup, I remember, you can ask him. He was so obsessed with the All-Ireland final, and we kind of wanted him to give him that for us to repay him for the work and time he's put into us.
There's Andrew there in his beautiful afro at the time. That was our under-16 team, so that was kind of his last ever game. He was our first captain ever to lift it, and on that day, that game, he did a great game that day. Very, very good, you know. And it was his last ever game, which probably is a great thing to finish off on, I suppose, you know, before he headed off to Norwich then a couple of months later.
Steps forward to receive the cup from John Early of the SFAI. The winners, Leixlip United.
Kind of seeing Kenny there and some of my friends now kind of lift the trophy and see the joys on everyone's face, and Kenny's and Rogers. They have their own lives outside of Leixlip United, but seriously, the time and the effort that they put into that squad that we had it's incredible. So to see them be so happy as they were for us lifting the cup was everything, really.
So first got to meet him as a first-year scholar when he came into the building. I was working with the under-23s, but I made aware of him as we signed him because he had to do all the physical profiling. Really excited when you get a player walk in with his physical attributes. So he was quick, but relatively underdeveloped because of the lack of sort of professional support in terms of physical development that he would have had in the past. That also makes it more exciting for us because with no support previously, we feel like we can make a really big impact on his performance.
Quite a steely determination behind the eyes, doesn't say an awful lot. We'll ask questions, look at you a bit funny every now and again. But also a lad that we realised very early on that he had something. He's got good shape, he carries himself really well. He's a big lad, 6'3", 6'4", but carries himself that way as well. And I think as he progressed through it, the moment he got to grips with full-time training, you could see that he sort of had all the components to be a really good player.
I was just so excited to get started. I think Andrew Omobamidele, obviously, at that point, obviously I knew him before I moved over, so I was thinking, he's an Irish player, he's doing well at the time. And I even remember when I first came, he was kind of like, I was like, oh my God, that's Adam, like, do you know what I mean? Don't tell him that, but I was 16 at the time and he was like one of the coming from Ireland and stuff. I remember walking past to go to train with the under-18s and he was training with the 23s at the time there, and I was just staring. I was like, wow, like I'm actually here. And so in a sense, I feel like he's like a mini role model at this club.
He came in, he was 6'2" centre-back, but hope he doesn't mind me saying he's quite skinny. So one area we wanted to do some work with is to develop a little bit of muscle mass and make sure that he could firstly deal with the demands of football outside, playing every day, but also when he's playing up against men and getting him ready for the first team.
It was kind of a strange one for him, really. Sort of had the first 18 months, then COVID hit, and then he wasn't really due back into the building until July, when COVID was still very strict. But what it did do, it allowed him to go home, probably have a little bit of cooking from his family, and he come back. He almost left a boy and come back a man.
We didn't know when we'd be back, so we were kind of looking to stay ready in a sense. So we were doing real, like, kind of old-fashioned stuff, because at that point nothing was open, so we couldn't go to a gym or go to somewhere to do proper actual training with cones and stuff like that. We were just trying to find the steepest hill, and we had footballs and stuff, but we'd go and just try and do our own stuff. So yeah, when I came back to Norwich, I feel like I was sharp, and because I've been doing training by myself, I think I was ready at that point.
And almost from day one, we were all almost surprised by his physical growth. He sort of, really filled into his body, and then we realised, probably when he came back as a first-year pro, that actually we've got a man on our hands now, and everything changed for him.
We played a Premier League 2 game at Leeds, and they had Rafinha playing, and there'd be a clip there somewhere from us. We used it as our best practice. Andrew attacks a corner, nearly scores one end, and then sprints the full length of the pitch to then block a shot. I think it's the fastest I've ever seen in terms of recorded speed on GPS that we've got in a game, which was over 10 metres a second, which is, for those that know, is extremely quick. Yeah, that was like a wow moment and went down as like best practice for our academy for probably still to this current day.
We were probably pushing as an academy and a club to get his debut long before he played at Preston, because he was ready.
Obviously, I think we had 2 injuries. I think Ben Gibson got injured, Zimbo was injured. So I could kind of sense like I could be close to playing, but it's never confirmed or 100%. So I was just like, okay, I need to be ready. Before that, I came on against Cardiff for the last minute or so. So I was more like, okay, I need to be ready in case I do start. And then obviously when I found out I was starting, I was just like, yeah, this is it. Like, I need to perform. I need to do well. Like, this is the chance they're giving me. And for me, and something that Kenny's kind of taught me, is sometimes you get these windows in football that you need to grab it with both hands. You can't let it pass you or let the occasion get to you.
On the right-hand side, who cuts in towards the penalty area, delivers across towards the far post, Buck Hazel into the danger zone. There's a real chance here, a scramble, and it's Omobamidele who blocks it. Well, we've just seen a great block from Omobamidele in the 6-yard box and a decent save from Tim Krul as well. Norwich are under real pressure here, and it's come to Emil Rees on the edge of the penalty area. Curling shot from him, it hits Omobamidele, and it's going to bounce behind for a corner. And Omobamidele slides and does a pretty good job to prevent the corner there, and it's a throw-in. Hughes on the left-hand side, early, high, diagonal ball from him towards the Norwich penalty area. Vandenberg heads it down, Omobamidele is there to clear. A solid debut from him.
I was just so over the moon that I made my debut. It was disappointing that I didn't get a clean sheet or stuff like that happened, and it was my first game. So yeah, after the game we had a good couple of games left, so after that I was like, okay, I want to finish out the season. I want to get the trust of the players and the manager to trust me to play these rest of the games, and at that point, like, win the championship.
And there's the final whistle, and it's the whistle that means Norwich City have won the league. They are the champions again.
It's tough because young lads come in and train me, and it's always difficult to really judge them until you see them on the big pitch, until you see them, on a match day. And sometimes lads will come in and train me, and you'll think they're a world beater, but then you get them on the big pitch and they get lost a little bit. But saying that, other lads are the complete opposite. You know, lads don't really look unbelievable in training, but then you get them on the big pitch on a Saturday and it's 11v11 and they really come into their own. You know, I think Andrew's done unbelievably well, you know, considering his age and considering he sort of got chucked in a little bit because of injuries and stuff. Just his temperament, and I think I've said it before about the young lads here. I don't know what they do or how they do it, but they always just seem so calm and so, you know, composed and ready to take their chance when it comes along. And I think he's done that at such a young age. You know, he's definitely got a bright future ahead of him.
I think Andrew is one of those names that you hear talked about in schoolboy circles, and people know about him in Dublin. I suppose the big thing about Andrew was he didn't play for one of the big main clubs in Dublin. He went from Leixlip United, which was a big deal for them to keep hold of him. Generally, the powerhouses of Dublin schoolboy football, you know, mop up all those players from the so-called smaller clubs. They got to keep him, retain him, send him away. So I think then once he's across in England, his name pops up. He gets, you know, those landmarks, playing for the Norwich City 18s, 21s. Those early games involved with the first team, and after that then it was pretty rapid. Before we knew it, we had a first team footballer who was still a teenager.
We've never had anything even close to an international from the males side of the game.
We had Emma Byrne, who was the record appearances for females in Ireland, so she was our original Andrew, and now we have someone like Andrew. And it's really important for the kids in Leixlip to realise that you can live in Leixlip, you can play football for Leixlip, and then you can go off and play in the Premiership and play against the best players in the world.
Obviously, it was the craziest couple of weeks we had. He went away on international duty, and I remember speaking to him. They had Portugal to play 2 days before the Portugal game, and we had a feeling he was in around close to being on the bench anyway, you know. And I remember speaking to him about, you know, you never know, in 2 days' time, an injury, be ready, you know, and you could be playing against Ronaldo, and, you know, how crazy could that be? And we were laughing and joking about it.
I think I didn't really have time to think like, oh, I'm playing against Ronaldo or Bernardo Silva. It was more of like, I need to perform, I need to be solid, I need to do my job, I need to, you kind of start thinking about the processes you have for playing centre-back.
And about 20 minutes into the game, obviously an injury came, and I think I watched the game behind the couch, to be honest with you. I was terrified.
And it wasn't until probably afterwards that the game finished and stuff where I was getting messages like, just made his debut for Ireland, and kind of sank in fully that, wow, like this is a massive achievement.
He was home when Stephen Kenny, the Ireland manager, rang him, and it was kind of like, guess what? And of course I was screaming and shouting and crying and, oh my God, this is actually happening, like this is going to happen. Obviously his Ireland debut happened while he was away, so we didn't get to see that, but then the next match he played in the Aviva, and yeah, I think we were all there, and it was just surreal.
How the people support us, the Irish international team in Ireland, it's crazy. We drive through Dublin City to go to the Aviva, and you'd see people waving, beeping at cars, and it just makes you feel so good to be Irish, do you know what I mean? And the support that we get, obviously from my personal, my friends and family and stuff like that, but as a country as a whole, the support we get for the team is incredible.
Paul, my father's the chairman, was there in the Aviva watching Andrew on his debut. I'd say half Leixlip was in the Aviva watching Andrew on his debut. It was just a brilliant thing for our club.
To be honest now, there wasn't too many dry eyes in the house when the national anthem came on. It was probably one of the proudest moments I've ever had. And to see him there doing it, not just that, he didn't just play in the game, he had an absolutely massive game. You know, he played a major part in it.
Players like Andrew come in, they realise they have to find their place, not come in with a huge ego saying, well, I'm a Premier League player, international, you have to prove it, and he did that.
I specifically remember about the 90th minute he got on a ball about 30 yards out, and 25,000 were roaring, 24,999 were roaring shoot, and I was roaring pass.
A Premier League debut for teenage centre-back Andrew Omobamidele, who played for Ireland in the international break.
If you were to tell me at 16 or even 15, or even tell Kenny or my mum at the point where clubs are telling me like, oh, he's not ready yet, to say when you're 18, 19, you're going to be making your debut in the Emirates against Arsenal, you're going to be playing against Aubameyangs, Bukayo Sakas, you're going to be playing against Ronaldo, Bernardo Silvas and stuff like this. So we would all just laugh at you, do you know what I mean? So for it to happen 2 or 3 years later, it was amazing, really.
Omobamidele's header! And he scored! Norwich City were not behind for long, and what a time for the 19-year-old to score his first senior goal!
So you've just reached one of the peaks of your career, and then 5 weeks down the line, injury setback.
Yeah. I think it was the week we were playing Tottenham away, and the start of the week I woke up and I was just feeling a bit of tightness in my back, and I was just, maybe I slept wrong, or maybe I pulled a little muscle during training, and then every day it was kind of getting worse, and then it got better, and then it got worse, and then come to the game, obviously I didn't feel it, so I started that game, and it got to the bell 65th minute, 70th minute, and my back just went, like I just couldn't run anymore, and I was like, yeah, there's something wrong with my back. But I think at that point we were losing like 2-0, and I think they just scored as well, so I was like, I don't really want to sit down and come off now. We're getting beat 2-0 and 3-0, so I was like, I just need to see it out till the end of the game. And then the end of the game come, and I obviously told the physios, and they kind of suspected it and got a scan, and that's when it showed that I had a small stress fracture on my back.
The hardest thing in terms of the rehabilitation is the patience that you require, especially early stages, because you're locked into a brace. It's pretty boring to start with, but he was brilliant. He had the patience throughout.
He handled it really well. He has some fantastic friends back in Leixlip who were a fantastic support network who came over and were around. Kenny then, of course, as well. Picked up the ukulele. He probably wouldn't want me telling you that. But yeah, we came over one time and he was there like, oh, you know, I'm come here, I'll show you something. He took out a ukulele and started playing it, and I was just sitting there going, when did this happen?
Even when we got to the end stage, like you never know how they're going to respond to load. A few times we had to back off a little bit, allow him to adapt, recover, rebuild him again, and yeah, he's gone on to play 21 full 90-minute games this season.
Always back.
Yeah, for us to win it, and Andrew captained our team.
What was he like as a captain?
Do you know what? Andrew wasn't a shouter or a roarer. He did very much his talking on the pitch, and you know, his performances dictated everybody around him to try and match his standards, you know. But he was very proud, very proud. He loved putting on the band, and he loved dressing it up on him, you know.
I think overall there was, if I go back to Leixlip, obviously I was captain there. I just feel like, going back to what I was saying about Kenny, he's always said to me, kind of giving me these little things that he wanted me to have as a footballer, and he's taught me so much, even outside of football, as a man and as a young man, how you should be and how you should conduct yourself.
The captain, 20-year-old Andrew Omobamidele, one of his youngest captains for 40 years. Incredible.
And he's always said to me one thing, he was like, people can only really see it, what type of man you are when stuff are not going right, when you're out of your comfort zone, when things could be blurry. That's when you can kind of tell who people are, if that makes sense. And obviously we were around that kind of game, we were in a situation where we had some injuries, and I think even before, a couple of weeks before that, I wasn't playing and stuff like that, but going back to what Kenny said, I wasn't like sulking or moaning or just not training properly or speaking to people a different type of way. I was like more just every day I was giving 110%.
For me, he's consistent in terms of approach every day. He's pretty unfazed if he has a good day, a bad day, and I think that's pretty rare with a young person.
And obviously the manager's seen that, and I think that's why he kind of seen that type of role in me, and I think that's what everyone should try and do, and especially for leaders as well. You need to set a good example, playing, not playing, injured, not injured. You need to kind of be that person that gives 110% and sets an example for the rest. And obviously I've been watching Grant Hanley be club captain, and I try to be a sponge when I'm around him and stuff like that, because I think on the pitch and off the pitch he's a tremendous leader.
It didn't surprise me that he was made captain. He's more one that leads by, I would say, by the way that he plays. You know, he's pretty much adaptable to any type of game. If you want a bit of a battle with him, he'll have it. If you want to play football against him, you can. And you know, to be the age that he is, and to be captain of a club of this size is a big achievement for himself.
I'm probably quite unique where I've followed his journey, and I've experienced academy football and first team football. So there's nothing better than turn up to a game and seeing 6, 7 academy products in our team on the pitch at one time, like him especially.
The ball's back in there, another chance for Norwich City. Can they bundle it over the line? They do! Norwich City have equalised. An excellent free kick by Nunes, and it's eventually bundled into the back of the net by Andrew Omobamidele.
The beauty of Andrew is we feel, and we still feel it, there is no ceiling for this guy, you know, it's just constant improvement. And to be fair to him, his attitude, if you speak to him, he just wants to get better and better and better, which is great for Norwich City, I suppose, and great for Andrew to have that type of attitude. It's something that I'd be quite proud of the way he is about that, you know. He just wants to improve all the time and play at the highest level. And, you know, onwards and upwards, may long continue for him, you know.
I look at it, his journey so far. He's been in the professional game for 4 years. He's played in the Premier League, he's played in international football. He's got a wealth of experience for a lad so young. He could probably be as good as he wants to be, really. It's just about whether he wants to dedicate himself to, you know, and to go that next step. There's nothing that I've seen so far that suggests that he won't.
I suppose when Andrew's at home, he's Andrew. He's not the big footballer. You know, like, when he comes home for a visit, he'll go around to Kenny and he'll sit down and have a chat with Kenny. He'll be at home with us. If I need chores or anything done, he's going to do it. Like, it's not, you know, there isn't this kind of, oh my God, you know, Andrew the big footballer. He's Andrew. He's my son. He's the brother. He's, you know, the lad from Leixlip.
Andrew went at 16, but ever since Andrew's gone, he's back in this club. He comes up and does his private work on his own in the club. He comes up, I come up on a Tuesday or Wednesday, there's Andrew up in the grass area doing some of his shuttles. What you see here is in part to what Andrew has done and been able to provide us. From a financial point of view, we were able to have a deal when Andrew went to Norwich based on appearances and everything else. And obviously, when Andrew went, he's a 15, 16-year-old, you don't maybe anticipate that ever coming to fruition, but thankfully for us, Andrew's been able to make these appearances, play for his country, something that we are incredibly proud of. And not only that, in terms of how we sell the club, how we market the club, having an Andrew is such a bonus, it's such a benefit. Everyone knows who Andrew is.
Andrew could come up here now, no exaggeration, and you'd be looking around to try, Andrew's here, is he? And he'd be out kicking the ball with the 10s, the 11s, he'd be in chatting with the girls' teams. Genuinely, he could be, and he'd be solo and playing like he's, you know, like it's nothing.
I was just a little kid from Leixlip, just playing football with his mates, that kind of, at some parts, growing up, needed that kind of inspiration, and I got it off different people for different reasons. So looking back to even now and the point of when I was playing in the Premier League, if I can kind of be that person for some of the kids like me, or in that situation I was in, like, it makes me happy because I needed that at that point as well.
And I think he has a great support network in the sense of, like, Kenny obviously is fantastic with him. mentor-wise, but also as a friend and as another man. His sisters keep him grounded, absolutely. If they feel that he's getting too big for his boots, they'd be the first ones to track him back to ground zero and say, nah man, you know, you're part of us, you know. I think we all kind of have a real down-to-earth kind of way about us. And he then has that kind of, he just kind of gets on with stuff and there isn't any kind of big deal about it. Like, he's doing what he loves, he's good at it, and we're really proud of him. And that's kind of how we see it. We don't see it as this big, I don't know, like celebrity, or he's, you know, he's this big guy on TV. He's just Andrew and he's doing his job and he loves doing it and he gets paid for it. That's great.
I think for me, I'm just still have the same mindset I did before I made my debut. I want to keep trying to cement my stake in the game. I want to keep improving. I want to kind of get to the next level of individual experience-wise and just keep developing. And the only way I can do that is by putting in the extra work, training hard, listening to the relevant people and kind of just keep doing what I've been doing. And I feel like that's what's kind of helped me. I've never really changed my mindset, and regardless of debuts or highlights and stuff like that, I've kind of always kept the mindset I had when I was like nervous to go and play with the first team, or about to go play with the first team, or about to come on for Ireland. I was always had the same mindset, and I feel like if it's kind of gave me those achievements, there's no point in me changing it now.